Hey folks, my name is Rene Enriquez, and you're watching Uncensored. I wanted to talk to you about a case that I was involved in titled The People of the State of California versus Vincent Bruce. And for those of you not in the know, Vincent Bruce was also known as Honey Bear. He was a Crip, and he was a friend of mine. Well, during my stay in the county jail, he became a good friend of mine, actually. He was one of our go-to guys for the Mexican Mafia and the Crips. When we had a conflict with the Crips, we would immediately go to him. He would resolve it, or we go to Sugar Bear, who was a BGF. Honey Bear was actually CCO, I believe, Consolidated Crip Organization, which is kind of like the mafia for the Crips. And I'm not even certain if it still exists and functions, but at the time it did. And he was an individual who was very easygoing, very tall guy, very, very laid back. And he had charisma, really good guy. So during the process of his trial, when he's being tried for his crimes, he had picked up a case in the county jail. He stabbed another inmate on the tier on Able Row. And they brought him to 2904 where I was housed. And I began speaking with him on the tier. And unbeknownst to us, the conversation was being monitored by a deputy sheriff by the name of Mike Winters, who later testified at Vince's trial. And I had to go rebut that testimony. Also testified in the guilt phase of his trial. So I was testifying for the defense at the time. I wasn't testifying for the prosecution. But in the guilt phase of this trial, I testified about the prison subculture and the norms that apply to prison. Later on, after we had all transferred out of the county jails, about a year or two later, Vincent Bruce was found guilty, and it was in the penalty phase. He was facing the death penalty. So a variety of us were transported down to the county jail at his request on subpoena. And because of that, it kicked off something known as Operation Pelican Drop. I'm going to run some video now by Chris Blatchford. I'm going to stop it and do some commentary on it. But this is probably one of the most arduous transfers that I have ever experienced in my life. In fact, after this transfer, every Mexican Mafia member, an AB member, and Crip and BG member that went on that trip swore never to be subpoenaed out again to court, because it was torture. It really was. And we'll get into that in a second. But let's hear Chris speak about it.
For a session with a home video camera, TV coverage was banned from the courtroom altogether. Sheriff's deputies, the DA's office, and even the defendant himself fought to keep us out. But we have pieced together a story that is not only bizarre, but scary. Vincent Bruce is acting as his own attorney while fighting to stay out of the gas chamber. And he sent shockwaves through the legal system when he subpoenaed nearly 20 convicted murderers and attempted murderers to testify as witnesses during the penalty phase of his trial. Most serving life terms in the state's maximum security penitentiaries. Prison gang specialist Rene Elliott, who is under strict orders not to discuss the Bruce case.
I remember Detective Elliott. He worked with OSJ. I think he was just a regular officer at the time. He worked with OSJ, and he coordinated all court subpoenas. And it was this individual that designed the transport, which Chris is going to get into in a minute. And when we're talking about the heavy hitters, you saw a list on that court list that was displayed as a graphic in the video. We're talking about the heaviest hitters in the state of California. John Stinson, Cuate Grajeda, Indio from Sereno, Indio Henry Carlos, Jimmy Sanchez, who was Smokey from VNE, myself, Ascari, who was Ascari Nelson, who was a BGF member, Little Vamp from 8 Trey, Little Mo Ruiz from White Fence. There was a lot of people in that transport that were dangerous men. These were some of the most dangerous men in the state of California. And Officer Elliott, or Deputy Elliott at the time, was tasked with maintaining our security. And you're going to see some of that unfold here in the video.
Red flag goes up when you see a witness list similar to Bruce's.
Time you put that many people of that nature together, your suspicions are heightened, and you're a little curious about their intentions or purposes.
9 of the Bruce witnesses came from here, Pelican Bay, the maximum security state prison where problem inmates are locked down 23 hours a day, chained and escorted wherever they go. Among them, reputed Aryan Brotherhood prison gang boss John Stinson, classified high escape risk. Mexican Mafia hitman Rene boxer Enriquez, Daniel Cuate Grajeda, who once plotted to assassinate a district attorney, and Henry Indio Carlos, classified dangerous to officers. According to sheriff's records, these 4 and the 5 others from Pelican Bay, just during previous stays in the LA County Jail, have been responsible for at least 7 attacks on deputies and 25 assaults on other inmates, including 2 murders.
I gotta stop it right there. I gotta protest that right now. I never participated ever in an assault on a law enforcement official, not even as an active Mexican Mafia member. It was just bad for business. But I get it. I mean, they're trying to stop us from coming to court, and Los Angeles County Jail, the district attorney's office, and the city attorney campaigned the court not to allow us to come down. But every defendant, particularly Vincent Bruce, he was acting in propria persona, which means he represented himself, has this ability to subpoena character and material witnesses. And to do so would create an appellate issue. In other words, he'd have an appeal, grounds for an appeal if they had denied him his witnesses. And we were his witnesses. But I wanted to stop it because the attacks on deputies. During my period in the county jail, there were no deputies attacked by Mexican Mafia members or their associates. There was one altercation where deputies beat up a couple of camaradas, but it was stopped at that. Excuse me, it was stopped at that point. There was no retaliatory strike against the deputies. It was just bad business to do that. And I was never one to put green lights on cops. So if anybody that knows me or knows of me knows that was not my doing. And I seriously question if those attacks happened as a result of the Mexican Mafia members. It may have been another group that did that, but it wasn't the Mexican Mafia.
Elliott would only talk in general terms about high-risk inmates.
Even inside the system, they're as ruthless and dangerous as anybody would be on the outside of the system. It's kind of a misconception that because they're in custody, that they're not capable of committing violence.
So Fox News has learned the 9 Bruce witnesses here at Pelican Bay in the last 2 weeks became the focus of what one insider calls an extraordinary security mission. All were first bused from Pelican Bay to Folsom Penitentiary, and from there to Wasco Prison near Bakersfield. Here at Wasco, the 9 inmates, all seen as escape risks, were loaded onto 2 separate LA County Sheriff's helicopters, 4 in one, 5 in the other. This artist's rendition, drawn from details obtained by Fox News, shows how pads were placed over the eyes of each prisoner, taped and strapped in place, blindfolded so they don't know where they are and can't see to attack.
So let me pause it here. Bust down from Pelican Bay State Prison and got to Wasco, and we laid over because we got there in about maybe 8 hours from Pelican Bay, 6 hours, and then we laid over. That next morning we're going to court, and we think we're going in vans, but we see these SWAT dogs coming into R&R. And we know that this is a high security team, that these are SEB, the Special Enforcement Bureau, also known as SWAT for the Sheriff's Department. And these are all alphas. We know we're dealing with alphas immediately. Like, these guys are killers. And they start pulling us out, stripping us down, and chaining us, right? They start doing bandoliers of chains like it's depicted in this drawing. And we'll include some video that shows us actually being loaded into the helicopter here. With these bandoliers on, and them actually applying the blindfolds to us. And it all looks high secure, but what nobody knows is that it hurt, like extremely bad. They put the bandoliers of chains across us. They chained us from the chest to the floor, so you're hunched over forward. They put flex cuffs around our knees, ankles, and our elbows to the waist chains. Then they put the blindfolds on us. And by the time we got off of that helicopter, it was extremely, extremely painful. I remember seeing tears in John Stinson's eyes when they had to carry him off of the transport because it hurt so bad.
Chained and handcuffed, legs shackled and chained to the floor. 3 heavily armed, specially trained SWAT officers rode in each chopper. 2 smaller helicopters flew behind each one as chase aircrafts. Arriving at the New Century Jail in South Los Angeles, the inmates were offloaded one at a time under heavy security. Here they were kept in separate cells during their 13-day stay. They were transported to court by themselves in a sheriff's bus. At least 3 security escort cars on the constant lookout for trouble. Inside the criminal courts building, 3 deputies escorted each prisoner to and from court, and as many as 11 deputies were in the courtroom at any given time. The judge banned all cameras as inmates were chained inside the witness box during their testimony. But despite this massive security ritual, inside Mexican Mafia heavyweight Daniel Grajeda's cell, deputies at one point found a 10-inch jail-made knife or shank crafted from a toilet fixture and stuffed under his mattress.
You know, the crazy thing about this story that and nobody knew. We didn't know about Guate getting popped with a knife until after. But he had just been requesting at Wasco State Prison. And I remember there was a IGI there by the name of Captain Negrete. He was a captain, right? And he was the IGI at Wasco. And Guate asked me to sell up with him. And so I approached Captain Negrete and I said, hey, why don't you sell me up with Guate? So I think at that point in time, Guate was going to whack me. Because he had a knife, obviously. And I didn't know it. I was oblivious to it. I would have walked in there and got whacked. And Captain Negrete denied the move. He said, you're not going to be here long enough to get cellies. We're not going to sell up anybody. You're all going to be single-celled. And in retrospect, I look back at it and like, wow, this captain saved my life. Little did he know that he saved my life, because at that time, Guate had already drifted far right in the political spectrum and was campaigning against me, Topo, and a couple other guys.
Learned during this period, sheriff's deputies discovered information confirming Mexican Mafia plans to hit a Hollywood actor who supposedly disrespected their organization.
These guys.
Meanwhile, the Vincent Bruce death penalty trial continues, as it cost $12,000 just to bust the Pelican Bay witnesses from prison and back. Another $16,000 for their helicopter ride, and an estimated $15,000 in security manpower just for the 3 days the Pelican Bay contingent was in court. Add in multiple bus rides for other inmates, escorts, jail personnel, and court costs, and estimated expenses for just the 13-day visit easily tops the $100,000 mark, a considerable cost to the taxpayer. So who is Bruce, and what besides his retrial is actually going on here? There are different theories on that, and we'll have that story tomorrow.
So a lot of speculation went behind this transport, that we were down there to kill Edward Olmos. They're talking about Edward Olmos, extort a Hollywood actor, or kill a Hollywood actor. That was Edward James Olmos, about the movie American Me. That was old hat by then. I mean, this had transpired years before. And I think it was just an informant or an inmate providing information to law enforcement at the time that we were going to discuss that. And that wasn't even discussed on the bus when we were together having our little juntas on the bus. But what a lot of people don't know is that how close Honey Bear was to some Mexican Mafia members, and how we did business so frequently with the Crips and the BGF there. In High Power, it's a different environment. It's different from the state prison, and it's different from anywhere else in terms of the penal system, because we program with the Crips every day. I mean, they're on the tier with us. We interacted with them. And when there was problems between the different races, the leaders of the Crips or the leaders of the Mexican Mafia would approach each other and discuss it. In fact, on one occasion, there was an individual by the name of Munta Jackson. Yes, Munta, not Monte. But he called himself Monte, a youngster who was in 2904 with me. I was an isolation unit after I had participated in the stabbing of Salvador Buenostro. I was isolated. But this youngster Crip comes up to the isolated unit. There's only 6 cells back there. And he begins disrespecting me. F your mom, F the M, like wolfing from behind the cell door. We call that cell soldiering. Because you're a big Billy badass behind that cell door. But once you're outside of that door, you're not, right? So I couldn't get to the guy. I mean, we talked about it. I talked to the camaradas there. We had anticipated cutting off the bars and killing him on the tier in front of the cops. But then he was moved out of our unit. And it was then that I contacted Vincent Bruce. I asked him, hey, this dude disrespected me. He disrespected the organization. He disrespected my mother. I want this guy dealt with. Vincent Bruce actually had him speared. But it was like a grazing wound. And after that, I mean, I wanted holes in that guy. So I requested that they stab him, and they did. They speared him as he was walking down the tier. And he actually ended up at I think it was 2904 with me. They brought him back there after the spearing, and he apologized to me. I think Vincent Bruce had spoken to him and sent me a message, say, hey, this guy's going to profusely apologize. Will you accept that after he's been stabbed twice? And I agree with Bruce. I didn't want to push the issue. I mean, I didn't want Vincent Bruce to lose face. Honey Bear, I didn't want him to lose face, you know, by doing a hit for the Mexican Mafia at the Mexican Mafia's insistence. He did it because the guy had generally disrespected me. So after he had been stabbed twice, I told Honey Bear it was a dead issue, but if he did it again, we're going to kill him. And that's how that went down. But what a lot of people don't understand was that this is just a simple transport. Like, this is one of the most elaborately thought out transports in the history of California. Mexican Mafia members being returned to court for testimony on a subpoena. We're going to include some video here so you can see it with specificity. But I think the most important part was that Vincent Bruce was my friend, along with a few other Crips that I knew. And I consider him such today. I wish him well. Obviously, he has multiple life without sentences. I think that as a result of some legislation, he may be having action sometime soon. I hope that's in the future for him. So I'll end this video now. We'll be sure to include some video clips for you here so that you can see the transport in progress. One of the individuals that went with us was Smokey from BNE. He's now deceased. Cuate Grajeda is now on the bad news list. Mo is on the bad news list. Ascari, BGF member, dropped out. I don't happen to know Vincent Bruce's status. I think he's still in good standing. So with that said, I'd like to encourage you all to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. As always, we'll be returning with more content. Thank you so much for your participation. Peace out, folks.